Hello everyone, my name is Edu and this is Ready Go Expat. Having traveled to about 30 countries, there are some lessons that I've learned along the way. Sometimes I've learned it the hard way of what not to do when traveling. So in this video, I want to share with you some mistakes that people make when traveling. Ready? Go. The first one is how you're gonna get your money there. So some people decide to bring some cash, usually, I don't know, euros, dollars. Other people just decide to get a debit card and withdraw money when you get there or use their credit card. I'd say use all three options, Always take some cash, like good currency, US dollars, euros, with you, because you never know what's gonna happen, and it's very easy sometimes to just exchange money when you get there. But bring a debit card where you can withdraw money as well, and also a credit card where you can pay, because many countries nowadays have like paying apps like Apple Pay, Google Pay, and other apps which you can use to pay. But it might be tricky in a different country because they might have their own apps, like I'll just give my example. Here, I'm in Colombia, and a lot of people use these paying apps. It's kind of widely accepted, but all of the paying apps that I've seen are like Nequi, DaviPlata, and they're apps from Colombia, and you need to have a bank account in Colombia, which I don't have. So it's very important to don't bring only one debit card or one credit card. Try 2 or 3 different ways so that you don't end up, without cash. And if you do, I don't know if you've heard of MoneyGram and Western Union. There are good ways that like somebody back from in your country can send you money, and you can withdraw it with your just full name and a code that they're gonna give. Also, it's very important to invest in a good suitcase. I used to buy those cheap suitcases, like cheaper, but then the quality you don't really know. And then after 2 trips, I don't know, the wheel will be broken or something. The suitcase itself would be like broken, and then you just have to buy a new one. So I think that's where you should invest your money. Like buy a really good suitcase, one that you're gonna be able to use 10, 20, or 30 times. On my first trip to Europe, there were no cell phones. So whenever I wanted to call back home, I would go into one of those shops where I could just go into a cabin, pick up the phone, and call my family back in Brazil. And that was so expensive. But nowadays, we all have phones. And even though some people have like a data plan back home where they have like international roaming, from my experience, it's usually cheaper just to get to a country, remove your SIM card, and buy a local SIM card. Here in Colombia, it's extremely cheap. It's like about $2 if you want to buy a SIM card and use it for a week. So instead of bringing your own SIM card from home, and of course make sure that you keep it somewhere, your SIM card from your country, and don't lose it like I've done before. Just buy a local SIM card, because nowadays you can use Uber, and you can use all these taxi apps, food apps, and Google Maps when you're lost. So make sure to buy a local SIM card as soon as you get to a place. Now, when planning for your trip, some people love planning and love writing down what they're gonna do, 2, 3, 4, 5 different sites or attractions that they want to see on that day. That's excellent, but make sure you don't put too much on your to-do list, because there are weather conditions that you may end up having to stay inside a museum for the whole day because you cannot go out. Also, there are days where museums are closed, usually on Mondays, but that varies. With COVID, some museums, which even if they're like cheap or they're like free to enter, you need to book in advance. So as a friend of mine told me about the Frida Kahlo Museum in Mexico City, he was planning to go there and he didn't look up the website. When he got there, the waiting list was like, the next spot was like in a month. So make sure you plan well, but also leave some time for like things that just might happen, and you might end up not going to those, your favorite spots. So this didn't happen to me, but it happened to a guy that I met on a tour in Moscow. It was a guy from Austria. And we were talking about arriving in the city. We met in one of those tours, museum tours, and then we ended up having dinner together. And we were talking about getting to the city, and Moscow, the airport, the international airport in Moscow is really, really, really far. It's like 45-minute drive with no traffic, you know? So we both arrived around the same time, like 1 in the morning. You know that by this time, like there's no public transport, then you gotta, you know, find your way to the hotel. And what the guy did was basically arrived, just hailed a taxi, airport taxi, and went to the hotel. He ended up paying, when we converted, more than 200 euros for that ride, okay? Which is just insane. I was in China by that time, and before flying there, I actually booked on an app, you know, just booked airport pickup. It ended up costing me about $30 to $50. I don't remember. But when I arrived there at 1 a.m., there was a guy with a sign with my name. I just walked into his car. He took me to the hotel, got there, signed, and that was it, because I had paid already with my credit card. You know, it's sometimes you perhaps think like, well, I want to save up some money, but that's not the right time to save up money when you're arriving at a city that you cannot speak the language, past midnight, and you know the hotel is far from the airport. So don't save on that. Like I highly recommend. There's so many options. You just Google and you find so many options for airport pickup. And still speaking of airports, sometimes we book flights which are really cheap, but then the flights will leave at either midnight, 2 in the morning, or really early, like at 6 a.m. And with all the COVID restrictions and other things that you know you need to go through, you know, passport control, security check, all of that, it takes time for you to actually board the flight and wait there. The departure gate. And sometimes if the flight is, for instance, at 7 a.m. and you want to take the subway or the bus or public transportation, it's not available and you're not going to get there on time. So with stopovers, I used to like just sleep at airports, you know, when I was younger in my 20s, early 20s, mid 20s, and that was not a problem. Now that I'm in my late 30s, I don't want to do that anymore. So instead of like sleeping at an airport, sometimes uncomfortable place, sometimes there's no sleeping area, I highly recommend like cheap airport hotels, you know, that you can find. Some of them are like capsule hotels that you can find inside the airport, inside the terminal. And other times there are free pickups from the airport to your hotel. And even though some of them might, yes, be expensive, make sure to check like other options, because I'm sure you might find I'm sure you'll find a hotel that is not that expensive, and you'll be able to like sleep and then board your next flight. Also, speaking of hotels, it's really important that you read the reviews, but don't just read and see, oh, this review on Airbnb has a, I don't know, 5 out of 5, 4.5 out of 5. Not only that, you know, because usually when you can, like on booking.com, for example, when you read the reviews, you can see where the person is from, you know, because try to read reviews from people from your country or countries that are like similar to your country, because sometimes people overreact, people exaggerate, people give like, you know, bad recommendation because of, I don't know, loud music from a club, which is understandable, of course, but still make sure that you read reviews accurately and like carefully, so that you don't end up staying in a place where it's actually cheap, well located, you know, clean, but because of 1 or 2 bad reviews, because somebody had a really bad experience, then you might not end up staying there. We all know that the price for tickets might change drastically depending how much luggage you have, you know. If you're deciding to carry 1 carry-on luggage, perhaps that's gonna be for free, but then 1 suitcase up to, I don't know, 20 kilos or 30 kilos, it's gonna cost sometimes the price of the ticket or even more. So pack less, you know, a lot of the things that you'll need, you'll be able to buy at the place, and it's not gonna be that expensive, you know. I'm talking about toiletries and other small things that you know that you can buy there, or that perhaps the Airbnb can provide, like a hairdryer or something. So pack less, and then you're gonna be able to buy things when you get there, and also buy a cheaper ticket instead of paying for like 1, 2 extra suitcases. And the last one is more like a piece of advice for you traveling, and perhaps it's a totally different culture, you don't know the food, the language or anything, and then you end up eating in like a local restaurant, those big chains that you can find back home, and you don't try the local food, local dishes, and the local cuisine. Even though it's important to be careful with like the quality of the food that you find, like street food and everything, make sure that you try the local food. It's usually cheaper than these international big chain restaurants, and it's part of the culture. It's part of traveling, trying food, trying the local cuisine. So watch videos on YouTube in advance, see if it's okay to eat out, where to eat out, where to buy street food and stuff like that, and make sure that you try and experience the whole culture, and not only go and see the touristy areas and take pictures for Instagram and that's it. What other mistakes you think I might have left out from this list? Please let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.